Okay guys, I'm just going to give you guys a quick update of what's going on around here. You saw in the last video I overhauled the carburetor. That carburetor is like a, I'm not going to say modern day version, it is a mid-80s, but it was more of a modern day version of half of a Quadrajet in reality, with some electronics thrown at it, you know. It was right at the end of the carburetor days where they were trying their best to make emissions better with limited technology that they had in the computer world. I mean, they could use today's technology and make a carburetor just as good as fuel injection, but why bother? Fuel injection is actually simpler at this point. But with that said, I don't think Junior has much more in this hood. This hood's not leaving here anymore to be worked on. He's going to knock that out here. What he has done is, I'm not going to touch it because my hands might not be clean. That's the low valance. This is the part where the grill is. Those two holes are where the bumper brackets come through. So this hooks to the passenger side fender, and that's the bottom. He stripped that whole thing, front to back, every area at the bare metal, and put it in etch primer. So he actually did that the other day. I just haven't been making videos on it. So tomorrow, bye-bye. Unfortunately, with that, my hood will be gone too. And this will be gone. And this place will have the Concord in it within the next couple of days. We just have to totally reseal the AMX. It's not sealed, it just appears to be at this point. It's not sealed enough for any kind of paint work. When are we doing paint work? We're going to be doing paint work throughout. The thing with the left side fender, I don't know. I think I'm just getting jerked around at this point. Thank God I didn't send these people any money. So they're like every 3 or 4 days I get an email. So if something's said and you respond, you gotta wait like 3 days to get an email back, and I'm just a little tired of it at this point. So on Tuesday, Junior's taking the original left side fender, which I've examined pretty well, and he's gonna take it and he's gonna strip it down and see what we really got. Rust wise, I have that area on the top when the mirror was mounted and it flaked away the stuff. That's no problem to just make a little patch. Nowhere else does it appear to have any kind of rust, and that rust was definitely caused because when the guys shot the screws through, they put that thick, it's not undercoating, it's some kind of protectant, because those cars don't have fender well, so all the rocks that come up the top of the fender has to be protected from that, some thick crap, and it fractured it all, and all the salt and water got up in there. So that's why the top of the fender did that. In that one area, all the areas where the fenders normally rot, which is here, is perfect. There's not even any surface rust on it. So it did have body damage in the corner where the headlight door would fit, as we all know. From what I could see by the backside, it looks like they worked it out. So if there's any kind of Bondo just in that little corner, it has to be a skim. It has to be that small, because they even got the body line back. So it couldn't have been hit too hard. The fender was definitely removed to have it done. It wasn't done with a dent puller. I knew that because the bolts were changed on the lower part of the fender. Anywhere it mounts to the rocker, there's no rot or nothing like that. So I'm going to have him, I peeled the wood tone back, because I thought the wood tone peeled away because the fender started to rust and it blew it away, but when I pulled it back, there's no rust back there. So the rust that I see oozing all over the fender is the little bit of Bondo they put on the front corner. Now, when I say a little bit, it's like as thick as paper. So it's not like they caked it on, but it must have been done so long ago that all the paint cracked. And when the paint cracked, the moisture got in. So it's not like there's a rot issue. So I'm going to have him strip it down, and I want to see if there's anything wrong with this fender. And the one thing I'm concerned about is this right here, the relationship to the top of the fender coming down and over. Okay, because I know these very easily move over, and that's no longer 90 degree. We found that out with that fender, and I had to adjust that. If you see any of the early videos of this car when it was gold, that is the factory fender, 90% of the hood gap was right, then the last like 6 inches, if maybe a little less, you saw it get closer. Didn't touch it, got closer. And that's because it had a tiny little rub dent, if you guys remember, right here. And it changed that angle, about this much of it. And if you guys also remember, I went in there and reshaped that and brought it back. And that's how I corrected the gap. The gap is, this is set up. It had the hood on, if you remember. We hung the fenders with the hood on. So the gaps are set up. I noticed when this hood was on, the white hood was on, it wasn't square. Meaning that fender was definitely over a hair, and they tried to compensate it with the hood, which they did. Okay? And then the back line wasn't correct to the cowl. So I want to make sure everything's solid on that fender. I'm still going to try and get this fender, and I'm still going to keep looking as this is going on. But if he strips the fender and I think everything's okay, I'm just moving on without it. And that'll be it. It'll just save me some money, actually. And I looked at what had to be changed from a 78 fender to a 79. If you do not have the 78 fender to start with, you cannot put a 79 and newer fender on. It's impossible. It'll fit the car, but the headlights will not fit. In 79, they took away all the metal supports to hold the headlight in, and that's when they went to quad lights, and they came up with this big plastic gizmo that just basically hooks to the radiator support and holds the 4 headlights. That's it. In 78, the first year, where the fender wraps around, they got all this metal and all this crap that holds the light, which is just held in with a couple of spot welds. And then there's actually 4 screws that go into the radiator support, which are already there. To switch that over is no problem, but you just need to have that fender to do it. So I had no problem. This was a 79 fender. I had no problem with the switch over. 78 fenders are very hard to get. Well, so are 79s apparently. And for the guys that don't know it, if you have a Eagle, there's only 1 year Eagle fender that interchanges with a Concord, Spirit, and the 77 and 78 Gremlin, and that's a 1980 only. In 81, the wheel wells move forward 1.5 inches. The front lip comes forward 1.5 inches. So you can't use that fender on there. A lot of people don't realize that an 80 Eagle, that's the wagon, it looks just like the Concord, is a 1 year only. 81 and newer has different fenders. You can't interchange them. The wheelbase is actually longer on an Eagle than a Concord because of the way they redid the control arms for all the 4-wheel drive stuff. So there's little things to know if you're into those types of cars. If you're into those cars, usually you know that already.